The X Zone Radio Show is heard on radio broadcast affiliates worldwide, including
AM 580 CFRA in Ottawa, Ontario, Canada.
WPUL AM 1590 in Daytona Beach, Florida.
KOHI AM 1610 in St. Helens, Oregon.
KHRO AM 1150 in El Paso, Texas. And for more information on becoming a professional broadcast affiliate of the X Zone Radio Show, visit
www.xzbn.net
or call toll-free worldwide
1-800-610-7035.
The X Zone radio and TV show is largely an opinion talk show. All opinions, comments, or statements of fact expressed by Rob McConnell's guests are strictly their own and are not to be construed as those of the X Zone radio and TV show or in any manner endorsed by Rob McConnell, Relmar McConnell Media Company, Talkstar Radio Network, its affiliated stations, or employees.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
There's only one song worth singing. They may try and sell you, 'cause it hangs them up to see someone like you. But you've gotta make your own kind of music, sing your own special song, make your own kind of music, even if nobody else sings along.
Welcome back to the X Zone, everyone. We're coming to you from our studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, on the Talkstar Radio Network, X Zone Broadcast Network, UK High Definition Radio, Euro High Definition Radio, Star Cable, X Zone TV, and Ustream. If you'd like to give us a call toll-free worldwide, 1-800-610-7035. My email address is xzone@xzoneradiotv.com, on MSN Messenger, xzoneradiotv@hotmail.com, and our website, www.xzoneradiotv.com. And don't forget, you can now listen to the X Zone 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days of the year at www.xzonetv.com. My guest this hour is Heather Hightower, and she's lightheartedly known as Conscious Girl of the Conscious Girl's Guide to Backpacking book and blog. Heather Hightower is passionate about helping others understand their own power and raising the vibration of the world. Heather's perspective on how to move through this world, creating miracles everywhere you go, is shaped by her own experience of fully healing from a disease that is considered to be chronic and incurable by the modern medical establishment. Exonation, it was through this personal transformation that she discovered that what it takes to create and allow miracles in your own body is what it takes to create and allow miracles to happen all around you in life, no matter where you are. She's distilled the method from the madness and gives it straight to you in ways that you can apply immediately, so you too can create lasting transformation for yourself and live your life the way you've always dreamt you would. Joining me now is Heather Hightower. Hey, Heather, welcome to the X Zone.
Hey, Rob. Thank you so much for having me.
Conscious Girl, why did you get that name?
Conscious Girl. Well, that's actually a great story, and not the place where I thought we'd start on this talk of healing, but I love it. Actually, in the aftermath of deciding I no longer wanted to be a chronic patient and embracing kind of a new adventure in my life, I spent 2006 in the highlands of Guatemala teaching music, and upon my return to Charlottesville, Virginia, I was kind of going through culture shock, and I was in this farmhouse, sort of in the zone cooking, and I just kind of got this download, it would like hit me like, it was undeniable, and it said, you will write a book called The Conscious Girl's Guide to Backpacking. And I was like, oh, sweet, and I got this full-body shiver, and the book just kind of started writing itself. And that was in January of 2006, and now I've created a whole business around that theme. That's where the nickname Conscious Girl comes from, and I help other people understand their power. So it's a wild ride. It's fun.
All right, stand by, Conscious Girl, also known as Heather Hightower. We have to take a commercial break, Heather. We'll be right back. Exonation, Heather's website is yourvibrationmatters.com. That's www.yourvibrationmatters.com. And Heather will be with me when we return from this 2-minute commercial break as the X-Zone continues from our studios in beautiful Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. My name is Rob McConnell. Don't go away.
Words singing, they may try and sell you, 'cause it hangs them up to see someone like you. But you gotta make your own kind of music, sing your own special song, make your own
I love the colorful clothes you wear, and the way the sunlight plays upon her hair. I hear the sound of a gentle word on the wind that lifts her perfume through the air. I'm picking up good vibrations. She's giving me the excitations. I'm picking up good vibrations. She's giving me
Heather Hightower is my guest this hour. Exonation, www.yourvibrationmatters.com. And I was wondering if you could share with us what disease you have and what you did to heal yourself from a disease that is considered chronic and incurable.
Well, that's a great question. I love that you're playing Good Vibrations.
Just for you.
Great song choice.
Just for you.
So, healing from ulcerative colitis and going on to live a life of adventure and entrepreneurship has been a total blessing in my life, and even having the chance to share that with other people is so exciting. So, the disease that I was diagnosed with in 2001 is called ulcerative colitis, and it's considered to be related to autoimmune diseases. It's an inflammatory bowel disease where you have chronic inflammation of the colon, and it makes you a prime candidate for something like colon cancer, which, as you know, is one of the leading forms of cancer in the United States. So, I was shocked, actually, when I read just a year ago that according to the CDC, 1 out of every 2 Americans is diagnosed with a chronic incurable illness. So, that statistic really shocked me, and I had to make a film about healing and just call it You Can Heal, because those are words that are actually, noticeably absent from our experience with illness. I think in our country, it's not really a message that you get, and that's one of the reasons I really wanted to come on here today and talk to your listeners, just in case, some of your listeners are struggling with something, and I want to start to plant new seeds within their minds. They might be already experiencing things in their experience that are starting to signal to them to say, hey, there might be a different reality, but they might not know where to start or what to do with it. So, I just want to say early on in our talk, there's so much to give your listeners, and I want to give them as much as possible, but I know we're on limited time. So would it be okay if I told them where they could go to get a free gift from me?
A free gift?
Yeah, where I could tell them a little bit more of the story.
Please do.
It's the website you've mentioned, yourvibrationmatters.com, and if they just sign up there, then they can get a 90-minute talk where I'm going to walk through some of what I wrestled with when I started to go through that process of wanting to heal but not knowing how to do it, and then really taking the core teaching out of that. And that's not time we have for today, but I'd love to give that to your listeners. So
I thank you very much.
Yeah. So, it's a huge question. How did I heal from an illness?
How did you heal?
Well,
give us a little bit of the
I know,
basics.
there's so much to it, but there's it's so simple at the same time. So, I guess I want to preempt it by saying I was a very dedicated patient for 6 years, and the beautiful, wonderful, well-trained doctors that I had treated me spectacularly. But the problem is that the current view of chronic illness is that, the inflammation needs to be suppressed. So what happens is you don't actually get to address the underlying issue. And in our Western belief system around medicine, the view is kind of like the body's attacking itself out of nowhere. But what I've come to believe in my life, that the single biggest thing that's helped in the healing process, and part of it's instantaneous and part of it has been a process of like revising belief systems around my whole life and really integrating them and, kind of being thorough above all those levels. But the biggest thing has been remembering who I am and stepping up into that and letting my voice be heard the way that it wants to be heard, so letting those gifts out and letting my truth out. And that's been the biggest thing. And there's kind of a whole other story of how I even opened up into that, which I'd love to give you later. But that's the gist of it. I did spend over 3 years and probably a small fortune, like tens of thousands of dollars out of pocket with non-insurance backed practitioners, kind of going on this journey of discovery. It was like a scavenger hunt, because our medical systems at this point still aren't fully integrated. So when you reach the treating capacity of the medical system, you're faced with a choice. You can stay there, or you can move through this divide that can be kind of scary because you don't have anybody to guide you. And so, what I do now with my business is I help my one-on-one clients and in my group coaching courses, I help hold people's hand through that divide within themselves, and really teaching them to find their own truth and understand their own power to create their realities. And like, that's a great concept, but in real life application, it can be kind of like a tricky, laborious process,
All right, let me ask you this. Given that you're no longer sick, and you don't identify with the label of a disease anymore, does this mean you're against Big Pharma?
That's a great question, Rob. So here's the thing about illness. When you are sick, often you feel powerless and you feel like your body's betrayed you. And so when you start to hear a message that's something other than powerlessness, like maybe the simple words, you can heal, it starts to like pull you out of that powerlessness. And like, if we're going to go to like an Abraham Hicks kind of reference, we could say, the call of source, the trumpet sound doesn't sound like angels on the hillside. It sounds like anger or rage or revenge or something just really, and when you're starting to go through that healing, it's easy to want to point fingers and say, well, if it weren't for you, I wouldn't be here. And often, in stories of healing, we find that. We find this, pharmaceuticals, are bad for this reason and that reason. And I want to just say to the listeners that, it's so important to keep moving through those feelings of rage into something that feels better, because it's the happier feelings, the feelings of hope and peace, are much more conducive to that ongoing wellness. So, like, if you're stuck in this conspiracy theory sort of mentality that, like, Big Brother's out to get you, I'd really encourage any listener just to maybe rise above that for the sake of your own body, And so, like, I don't want to be on drugs, which is why I spent the time and the investment to craft a life around that, and that's why I'm teaching people in my upcoming 5-week virtual course, Adventure Rockstar, like how to do this for themselves, because it's not something that's culturally taught in at least in the United States that I've experienced. But
let me ask you this. What you're teaching, if someone has an illness, is there any possibility that they could be doing more damage to themselves by doing what you're going to be teaching them without getting proper medical guidance?
Oh, I'm really glad you brought that up. No, I'm a huge advocate of surrounding yourself with professionals, right?
Okay.
So, like, in my own process, I always invested in having a team of people around me. Like, I went to my doctors, and I went to my nutritionist, and I went to all of the professionals that I thought would make up a good, well-rounded, like, a team, you know, that could champion me, that could give me all the information I needed to make careful, wise decisions. And what I, found that at the end of the day was that they would all send me home and say, well, it's really your decision. And that's where I needed a little more guidance, because it's scary when you feel like you might die. So I would say, if I'm not advocating stop taking drugs, what I'm saying is there's another level to it. And if you're interested in really kind of exploring new parts of yourself, then there's so much possibility.
In today's society, people expect an overnight cure. And I know after reading about your story, it wasn't overnight. It took time, it took research, it took effort. I'm sure there might have been times whether it's in you or not, where you've said enough is enough, but yet you kept on going. It's perseverance.
That's actually an interesting choice of words. I think we hear a lot of people talk about overcoming disease. I'd actually invite people, your listeners, to reframe that, because when your body has a message for you and it's speaking up and talking to you, and maybe that's coming out in the form of an illness, we don't necessarily want to overcome it and push through it and fight against it, but rather start to listen to it.
That's right. Why don't we listen?
Persevere through some of that mucky territory. So,
why don't we listen to our bodies?
Why don't we?
Yeah.
I think I'm not sure that we're all always so encouraged socially to maintain that mind-body connection. I think feelings are such an important part of life existence, and I think frequently, we're given messages that feelings are not okay, like you're not supposed to feel a certain way, and it could be on any number of topics. But what happens when you start to have a feeling, and this is something I go in on that 90-minute talk at Your Vibration Matters. I go into this in depth, but if you're in love with doing something, let's say you love dance, and you are dancing, your joy, and then somebody laughs at you or tells you you can't make a living doing that, and you stuff it back in, you start to sever the connection with the feeling, because it's traumatizing. So, part of the healing process is creating that safe, wise, trusted space, and getting the right hand to hold your hand as you start to cross this terrain within yourself that you may have been closed off from for years sometimes. And if you're into the whole past life thing, you could even say, for centuries. So, yeah, it's a great question. You have so many good questions.
Do you find that people, instead of accepting responsibility, like to pass the buck?
No, you know what, and then when I work with my one-on-one clients, I really come to that space with the belief and the intention that they are infinitely wise, So I am a guide for a part of their journey, but their wise self, I believe, is truly always in charge. So even if somebody is feeling like their life situation just really sucks, I want to be that reflection that says, okay, how can we take this to the next level? How can we pull you out of this life situation that, doesn't resemble what you thought you wanted out of your life? And how can I give you the power to do that for yourself?
You and I have to take a commercial break with the news at the bottom of the hour. Heather, please stand by. Great talking to you. Heather Hightower is my special guest. Her website is yourvibrationmatters.com. And Heather and I will be back on the other side of this commercial break and the news as the X Zone continues from our studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. My name is Rob McConnell. Don't go away.
She's somehow closer now. Softly smile, I know she must be kind.
You're listening to the X-Zone Radio Show, live and around the world on the Talkstar Radio Network, X-Zone Broadcast Network, UK High Definition Radio,
Euro High Definition Radio,
and Star Cable. Our toll-free telephone number worldwide is 1-800-610-7035.
Our email address, xzone@xzoneradiotv.com.
On MSN Messenger, xzoneradiotv@hotmail.com,
And our website,
www.xzoneradiotv.com.
I believe it's meant to be, darling. I watch you win. Hey, lady, you lady, cursing at your life. You're a discontented mother and a regimented wife. I've no doubt you dream about the things you'll never do, but I wish someone had to talk to me like I wanna talk to you. Ooh, I've been to Georgia and California and anywhere I could run. Took the hand of a preacher man and we made love in the sun, but I ran out of places and friendly faces because I had to be free. I've been to paradise, but I've never been to me.
Welcome back, everyone. My name is Rob McConnell. This is the X-Zone. My guest this hour is Heather Hightower. We're talking about, well, let me see. We're talking about Heather's turnaround, I guess we can call it. Her website is yourvibrationmatters.com. And Heather is the author of The Conscious Girl's Guide to Backpacking. It's a book, it's a blog, and once again, our website is www.yourvibrationmatters.com. You know, Heather, it's funny because people take better care of their cars than they do of their bodies. You'll take the car into the mechanic, you'll get a lube job, you'll make sure that all your fluids are correct, the right air pressure in the tires, and yet you don't take care of yourself. You make sure that you give your car the best gasoline possible, the best transmission oil, the best oil, and yet we feed our bodies junk. What's wrong with this picture?
It's so funny you say that. My car is full of junk. So my herbalist tells me that's a reflection of how I treat my body. But no, joking aside, wouldn't it be so cool if, like, we got to the point on Earth where we could look at things in terms of energy? So, like, we are talking about my turnaround story from being the kid that never got sick to being diagnosed with what was called an incurable illness to having a miraculous recovery, which was part miracle, which I think is actually more commonplace than we tend to think, and part diligence and perseverance to really revise all my belief systems about the world. But one of the outcomes of that is starting to look at the world in terms of energy. So really my question that I throw back to you and your listeners is it the food or is it what we believe about the food? And your approach to diet. So, diets, that's a whole other conversation for a huge day. And that's
well, I will definitely say it's the food that we throw in our bodies. There is no two ways about it in my book. We eat garbage. We eat junk. We're in a fast-paced society where our bodies were not built to put up with the crap that we're putting them through.
Yeah, and this totally isn't my area of expertise, so I don't want to lead your listeners too far astray, but it's true. But then again, like, how can you fault people too much? I mean, we've got this crazy busy world and all this life to be living and all these experiences to be having. I mean, this is probably one of the most exciting times to be on Earth.
All right, it may be exciting. That doesn't mean we have to, ingest all the chemical crap that we do. Instead of slowing down and boiling some potatoes, getting some real fresh vegetables instead of, going into the can or going into the frozen stuff, we can actually slow down and enjoy ourselves.
Yeah. Oh, and I think that your last words are the most beautiful. Enjoying yourself, and what is it for your listener right now? What is it that you enjoy? And I love to ask that question. I love to ask the question, what do you want to be doing right now?
Let me answer that. Doing exactly what I'm doing. every day of the week. I've got the best job in the world. I talk to very interesting people who want to make a difference in other people's lives for the better, like you do.
I love it. I love it. Well, it's a huge question, but I think the positive stuff is I think there's a huge growing awareness of that balance between mind, body, spirit.
Yeah.
The green movement's going on, the local food movement's going on. There's so many new, our local supermarkets are starting to have better organic sections. I mean, it's a massive fight, but I think that brings us back to a really important thing. With all things energy, I would say that where we want to push against, I want to challenge and invite the listeners to go a level further. And instead of pushing against something, whether it's the food industry or a disease or whatever, but really to step into what is that truth for you, and can you hold that light so brightly that others are drawn to it? And I think that is really a much more powerful, seductive, attractive,
Give me an
effective
example.
energy.
Give me an example.
So, perfect example would be my story of healing that I'm telling you today. I've been wanting to share this for so long, and I'm so grateful to be on your show today. And I had to go through this process of figuring out how to tell this story and who to tell it to. So, I've got a business that has an adventure theme and a backpacking theme and a living, and it's got a little sexiness to it because it's fun and it's playful. But I did spend many months, barking up the wrong trees, going to people who weren't ready to hear what I had to say, or maybe didn't want to hear what I had to say, and kind of, I would share my story almost like, here, you need to eat this. It's good for you. And the result is it's not as effective because the energy around it is not as beautiful. But also, if you're talking to somebody who's not ready to hear what you have to say,
They're not going to listen.
It feels like a slap in the face to them. And I just decided I didn't want that for myself. I'm like in my business, I'm creating like a house party, and if people want to come up and show up and go through this transformation and enjoy themselves, like, you're welcome,
So the house party attitude.
Yeah, good food,
So let's
hear
go.
a couple
Let's
new
go over
songs
to
that you like.
let's go over to the Heather's house. So hold hands, sing "Kumbaya" and buy Tupperware. Is that it?
No. Well, I mean, if that's your thing, But I mean, in all seriousness, there is a huge culture of, we need to change this. And what I think we're really ready for in the consciousness level of the world is to say, I want to be the change that I want to see in the world, which is why I'm teaching people how to create their own sexy, wonderful, adventurous lives from the inside out, because that's where it starts. It starts within you.
But Heather, what do you do? Or how would you recommend for people out there who may be listening around the world who want to create change in their lives, but they don't know where to start?
Oh, that is, yeah. I mean, and my heart goes out to anybody who's listening who is in physical pain or is struggling emotionally with anything. And what I want to just plant the seed with is that is that there is so much possibility in this world. So if I were to give one thing just to start with, it would be there was one simple statement. And this is this is like one of 7 statements that I teach people as they're going through this transformation from chronically ill to well. And it's one of the things that I held close to my heart when I had no idea what else to do, and I would like eat something and I'd feel a rumble in my tummy and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to die. But I would just remind myself this one thing, and it's this: you have the divine right to perfect health. You have the divine right to perfect health. And a statement like that, I mean, I'm sure there are listeners right now who are hearing that, and like the bigger part of them is sighing with relief, being like, I recognize that statement, I recognize the wisdom in it. And the thing is, it doesn't really make sense in our logical, day-to-day, every modern world living. That's not a belief that's very common. So, and it also threatens a whole other belief system. So it's for starting, one is know that there's possibility beyond what you and I can imagine. And I can't tell you, I couldn't, tell you what that is all about. I could just say, if you can be open to it, and then start just saying that one thing to yourself and see what the effect is, on your heart. You asked me before what was it that opened me up to healing or something like that. But, really, every moment you're sick, the bigger part of you is asking for wellness. And I went through a moment on June of 2005 where I cried myself to sleep. And I was sobbing, please, God, or whoever's out there, like, I don't want this to be my reality. And I think I just relaxed enough. Like, I was so exhausted from all the crying. Like, there was just like a crack in my belief, in my brain, that started to let in some of the answers that I'd been holding at arm's length. And actually, I had people already near me in my life who started having new kinds of conversations with me. It's like I grew new ears that night. And then came the perseverance of just pushing ahead and saying, I don't know where it's going, but I know I need to move forward. And so that's what I would offer to somebody.
While you were out on the road backpacking, how did you take care of yourself? How did you stay healthy?
Yeah, it's a totally valid question. I'm human. It's not to say that I don't get sick, but I want to, I pick up parasites every now and then. I mean, I think maybe if I were a totally realized spiritual human being, maybe I could, bypass that somehow. I'm not there yet. But I think the huge distinction is that I let go of the label of the disease defining me. So when I did start to feel unwell within my body, it didn't trigger this total panic, like, I'm going to have a relapse, I'm going to need to go to the hospital, and it's like kind of like the worst case scenario just comes flashing through your mind. And so becoming healthy, when I'm on the road, staying healthy, it's about balance, and it's about doing what makes me feel good to recuperate. And sometimes that's an herb, and sometimes it's a pill, and sometimes it's, coming home and seeing, the doctors that I have here. So.
All right. So what do you do now to stay healthy now that you are healthy?
Yeah, it goes back to that holistic view of the body. And like I mentioned before, like, diet is not my expertise. It's not really where I like to spend my time micromanaging my life. But one thing I am really excited about is living my gifts, So, like, one of them is energy work with people, and it's like letting that out, giving that space, giving it a place in my business. Another is that I have a background in music and I sing, so doing things that are standing in my joy space, I really, truly believe is what keeps me healthy, because when you are flowing and you are living and you are expanding and you are moving with that, that, in my mind, in my opinion, is the recipe for letting the body do what it naturally does, which is to work for you, and it heals itself. I don't know how, I can't give you the the huge
you can't give
answers
me you
to
can't
why,
you
but
can't give me the functionality. All you know is it works.
all I know is it works. And it's funny, Rob, because your tagline is where fact is fiction and where fiction is reality. And so, my fact that I healed from a disease is somebody else's fiction. I've had so many people say, well, you must not have had good doctors who gave you the right diagnosis, because you can't heal from that. And, it's amazing because there's just no space in so many minds for a story of healing. So all I want to be today is that testimony, like, you can, and your route, a listener, somebody who's listening to this, is probably going to have a completely different experience of it than I am. But I think there's a common ingredient, and one of those common ingredients is being open to the possibility. And that's really what I want to represent here today, because I believe in it so much,
The only difference between a dream and reality is making it happen, is believing that it can happen and it will happen. I really believe that in my heart of hearts, no matter what it is. Tell me something, and I don't mean to sound negative here, so please,
okay.
I just want to preface this. Why is your story of healing so important?
Well, like I said earlier, in our country where, there's a statistic of 1 out of every 2 people in the United States who's suffering from a chronic incurable illness, that's just sad. And I've known, not only with myself, but I've known people personally who are wrestling with degenerative illnesses, and it's sad. And I just, if there's another possibility, if maybe hearing my words might trigger something in them, then I feel like, wow, this is great, and if they want to take it further but they don't know where to go, and they've got this great team of doctors and they want somebody to help give a new tool set. You know, that's
Right.
what I have my business for. And that's why I'm doing this 5-week virtual course. You know, Adventure Rockstar, be the powerhouse you know you are, because I believe that a lot of people who are physically sick really have a huge light to shine. And we've got 6 billion people on the planet, and I believe like that the creativity to solve the world's greatest problems resides in the hands of the people on this planet. And those gifts can't come out if we're stifling them or we're not letting them out. And I just really want to encourage that.
Instead of it being I the person, we need to turn it around to saying we the people one more time. Heather, please stand by. You and I have to take our final break. We'll be back on the other side. Exonation, what a story, what a lady. Heather Hightower is our guest. She is the author of The Conscious Girl's Guide to Backpacking. Her website is www.yourvibrationmatters.com. That's www.yourvibrationmatters.com. My name's Rob McConnell, and this is The X Zone. It's a place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard, Monday through Friday from 10 p.m. Eastern until 2 a.m. Eastern. And then the show is repeated by our second network from 2 a.m. until 6 a.m., and then a third network from 6 p.m. until 10 p.m. And, of course, you can always check with your local radio station to find out when they're scheduling it or when they're having the refeeds. Somewhere, anywhere on this globe of ours, you can actually listen to the X Zone radio show, not only on our sites, but on radio stations around the world, satellite distributors around the world. The X Zone is growing thanks to you, the members of the X Zone Nation. I'll be back on the other side of this break. Don't go away.
She goes with me to a blossom room. Everything turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, turn, turn. And a time to every purpose under heaven. A time to be born, a time to die.
Heather Hightower is my guest this hour, www.yourvibrationmatters.com. Heather, we all hear about stress and that stress causes disease. So what does lifestyle have to do with it, and how do you manage stress?
Okay, this is such a good question, and I'd just like to say I love that you played To Everything There's a Season, because I was thinking of that song earlier when you're like, how do you stay healthy? I'm like, well, to everything there's a season in my head, and then you played it, so way to go. That was awesome. So stress management in general, I think, is like a totally reductionist view of looking at things. And so what I would say is, what if instead we looked at love flow management, or something like fun like that? Like, are we letting love flow through us? And love is expressed in all ways, like through people and through art, through businesses, through adventure. And my question for the listeners is, are you living what's inside of you, Or do we need to rescue your adventurous life? And if that's the case, then, get on my email list, get your free gift, because on August 16th, we're starting my 6 Steps to Rescue Your Adventurous Life Adventure Rockstar course, And sometimes life pulls you to these places where you're like, well, how am I going to go there? Like, I can't travel halfway across the world, or I can't have that conversation with somebody. And I just really, the more we can let that life force flow through us, stress management becomes a non-issue, because you're not stressed when you're flowing.
So how do you deal with stress?
How do I deal with it? Well, I have to be really cognizant of walking my talk, So I always surround myself with people who can help me do things that are hard for me, and I'm always taking a look at how I can up my game. And that's what I help my clients do too. It's like, okay, so you're sensitive, powerful people, let's bring it, so I have a chiropractor that I see on a regular basis, and I do Bikram yoga, and I do jujitsu to get the aggression out. And I really have to stop sometimes and be like, I can step away from the computer and make a meal. And honestly, that's hard for me, but what's hard for me might not be hard for somebody else. And so we're all going through this life with our with our challenges. So all the ways that we can start to be kind to ourselves. I mean, I'm not always the best example of it. I do the best that I can, but we're here to support each other and to live this life and have some fun while we're at it.
That's all we can do in life, is the best we can.
It's true, and I really believe that everybody on this planet really, truly is, no matter what their life situation is. I really believe that.
First of all, I want to thank you so much for joining us, Heather. It's been a great pleasure talking to you.
Thank you. Thank you.
How can our listeners contact you for more information?
Sure. Well, again, if you go to yourvibrationmatters.com and you put your email in, I'm going to send you a 90-minute webinar that goes more into depth around wrestling through what it means to start to heal and revamp my life and sort of craft it from the inside out. And I'm going to give you my core teaching. So, I really want to give this to you. I also have a blog called consciousgirlsguide.com. You can read. It's a more travel-themed. But that's Your Vibration Matters is where to go. Get your free gift. I want, to be a positive presence in your life. And
all right, Heather, we have to say so long for now. We kind of ran out of time, but I do thank you very much for joining us. Heather Hightower has been my guest this hour, Exo Nation. Once again, Heather's website is www.yourvibrationmatters.com. That's www.yourvibrationmatters. I'll be back on the other side of this commercial break with the news as we continue here in the X Zone from our studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. My name is Rob McConnell. Don't go away.
To everything.